Everest Base Camp, marketed as a gateway to dreams. On April 25, 2015, Google executive Dan Fredenberg lay in his tent just days after his sister's 12,000-like Instagram post. Minutes later, a 100 km/h ice avalanche erased the illusion of safety, 19 dead. But this was not the only time base camp became a grave for trekkers, climbers, and workers alike. Helicopter crashes, silent altitude attacks, off-season isolation, and conflicting official reports reveal that what is sold as sanctuary is anything but. These deaths did not happen on Everest's technical slopes. They happened in places trusted to be safe. Why are these stories so often left out of the myth? The truth behind Everest Base Camp's most overlooked tragedies begins here. At 5,350 meters, Everest Base Camp sits on Schiff's ice. The Khumbu Glacier moves beneath the tents, creaking and groaning in the night. Every spring, hundreds of Sherpas migrate here, staking out a temporary city of canvas and rope. They raise prayer flags. They burn juniper to honor Chomolungma, the mountain goddess. For decades, this ritual has marked the start of each expedition season. To outsiders, these ceremonies look like tradition. For the Sherpa community, they are a plea for mercy from a place they do not trust. Base camp is not a permanent settlement. It is built, dismantled, and rebuilt each year as the glacier shifts. Permit rules dictate who can stay. The Nepal government issues more than 50,000 trekking permits annually. In peak season, over 1,000 people sleep here each night. Operators promise a safe adventure. Brochures call it a trek for anyone in good health. No climbing skills required. The route is sold as manageable, just a long walk to the foot of the world's highest mountain. Yet the ground is always moving. The glacier slides a meter a year, opening crevasses beneath the tents. Avalanches thunder from Pumori and Lingtren, sometimes without warning. Sherpas speak of the mountain's anger. They listen for rumblings in the ice. In their stories, the spirits punish arrogance and carelessness. But for most visitors, these warnings are invisible. The camp feels like a haven, flat, bustling, alive with voices from every continent. There are bakeries, satellite phones, and Wi-Fi. There are birthday cakes and summit parties. The illusion of safety is complete, but the numbers do not lie. Between 1990 and 2024, at least 150 people died at or near base camp, or on the final approach. That is 15% of all Everest region deaths. Many were not climbers. Some were trekkers, guides, or workers. Most died quietly, in tents or on the glacier, far from the spotlight of the summit. The risks are hidden in plain sight: altitude, cold, thin air, and the chance that the ground itself will give way. The Sherpas know this. They move their tents, pray, and wait. The rest trust in the myth of a safe camp, never seeing the danger until it is too late. Dan Fredenberg, age 33, was awake in his tent when the ground began to shudder. It was 11:56 a.m., April 25, 2015. The shaking lasted less than a minute, but the sound that followed was like nothing anyone at base camp had heard before. A wall of ice broke loose from the Pumori Serac, high above the tents. Within 9 minutes of the quake, the avalanche hit. The force swept through the central corridor of camp at nearly 100 km/h. Tents vanished. People who had just finished breakfast were buried beneath tons of snow and debris. Fredenberg, a Google privacy engineer from California, had been posting photos to Instagram just days before, smiling, raising banners for climate awareness, promising to come home. He died from a traumatic head injury. His body was found inside the shredded fabric of his tent. 19 people died that morning, 18 climbers and 1 Nepali liaison officer. Another 22 were injured, many with broken limbs or crushed lungs. The avalanche struck the heart of camp, flattening 40% of the tents. Those on the outer edges survived, shielded by ridges of ice and rock. Survivors described it as an ice tsunami. The central grid, where the largest expeditions camped, was erased in seconds. The numbers told the rest: 19 dead, 22 wounded, half the camp destroyed. Fredenberg's sister Tara posted the news to his Instagram account. by mid-afternoon. Dan is gone. We lost him in the Everest avalanche. He died doing what he loved. Her words reached hundreds of thousands before the official death toll was even clear. Time and Reuters confirmed the story later that night. The avalanche was not a freak accident. Seismic records from the USGS show the quake's vibrations triggered a 50-meter thick slab of ice to shear from Pumori's face. The path funneled straight through the most crowded sector of base camp. For hours, survivors dug with bare hands, searching for friends and strangers. Helicopter rescues were impossible. The Kumbu icefall above was blocked by more collapsed seracs, and pilots could not risk landing on the unstable glacier. In the aftermath, the myth of safety was shattered. Fredenberg was not climbing. He was not on the mountain. He was in a tent, on level ground, in the place sold as a refuge. The illusion was gone, replaced by the sound of sirens, satellite phones, and the long wait for help that could not come fast enough. May 28, 2003. At Everest Base Camp, the air is thin, but the mood is electric. This is the 50th anniversary of the first summit, Hillary and Norgay's triumph. Tents crowd the glacier, flags snap in the wind. Climbers and guides mingle with officials, cooks, and porters. For once, the talk is not of danger, but of history. There are toasts with tea and whiskey. Laughter drifts between the tents. Some have just returned from the summit. Others wait for their turn to leave, duffel bags packed for the helicopter ride to Kathmandu. The camp is more crowded than usual. Nearly 200 people have gathered for the anniversary. There are speeches and group photos, Sherpas in ceremonial scarves, Western climbers with medals around their necks. The sound of celebration echoes off the ice. A Russian-built Mi-8 helicopter waits at the edge of camp, its green hull gleaming in the morning sun. This is the workhorse of the Himalaya, flown in for rescues, supply runs, and today for ferrying climbers home from the party. Among those waiting are record holders, names that will appear in the next season's guidebooks. Lakpa Gelu Sherpa, who has just set a new speed record on Everest's south side, stands near the landing zone. Climbers from Germany, Nepal, and Kazakhstan check their harnesses, ready for the short flight down to Lukla. The Mi-8 will make several trips, each time swooping low over the tents before touching down on the glacier. The crowd presses close, eager for a glimpse, some snapping photos, others waving at the crew. The atmosphere is charged but uneasy. The helicopter's approach draws everyone's attention. It hovers, rotors chopping the thin air, then circles for landing. Wind gusts swirl across the glacier. The tents are only 100 meters away. Children of Sherpa cooks dart between the ropes. Few think of risk. The camp is flat, the party is in full swing, and the machine is trusted. In this moment, base camp feels invincible, shielded by tradition, buoyed by triumph, oblivious to the dangers that wait in the thin air. The Mi-8 helicopter hovered above the glacier, its rotors biting at air too thin to hold it steady. At 5,350 meters, the laws of physics turn hostile. The crowd below, climbers, guides, cooks, watched the green hull drift lower. Few understood the risk. In thin air, a helicopter's lift can drop by 30%. Every kilogram of weight matters. Every gust is a threat. At 10:16 local time, the machine lost its grip. Witnesses later described a sudden shudder. The engine screamed, but the rotors could not keep the aircraft aloft. The Mi-8 entered what aviation manuals call a vortex ring state, settling with power. The helicopter's own downwash formed a deadly column of turbulent air, choking lift from the blades. There was no time to recover. The nose pitched forward. The Mi-8 slammed into the glacier less than 100 meters from the nearest tents. The impact tore the landing gear from the fuselage. Metal and ice exploded outward. Two Nepali crew, pilot Fudorji Sherpa and passenger Anup Dewan, were killed instantly. 4 others were badly hurt, including a German trekker, Marie Bergmann, her leg crushed beneath a twisted seat frame. Blood streaked the snow as survivors scrambled to pull the injured from the wreck. The celebration was over in an instant. Nepal's Civil Aviation Authority sent investigators. The CAAN docket found no mechanical fault. The logs were clean. It was the AIR itself that failed. High-density altitude, gusting winds, and a descent rate too steep for recovery. The Mi-8's rotor system, designed for Siberian winters, was outmatched by the Himalayan void. At this altitude, even a routine landing becomes a gamble. The debris field cut across the camp's flat heart. Children of Sherpa cooks had been playing nearby. The crowd scattered in panic. Army helicopters arrived hours later to evacuate the wounded. The wreckage was left to freeze into the glacier. The numbers were small, 2 dead, 4 maimed. But the message was absolute. Even at base camp, even on level ground, the mountain allows no mistakes. The myth of safety died in the silence that followed, broken only by the sound of rotors fading into the thin, blue air. Matthew Paul Jones woke at 3 a.m. in Gorak Shep. The room was dark. His breath came shallow, chest tight, mouth dry. The air at 5,164 meters is thin. Half the oxygen of sea level. He tried to sit up. A splitting headache. The guide checked his pulse, counted his breaths. Jones had been fine the day before. Now, his lips tinged blue and a wet cough rattled in his throat. High-altitude pulmonary edema, HAPE, can strike without warning. Fluid fills the lungs. Oxygen cannot pass. The body drowns from the inside out. The guide gave him Diamox, hoping to slow the swelling. The window for the drug to work is short, sometimes less than an hour. Portable oxygen tanks were unpacked, but at this altitude, the flow is never enough. The hiss of the mask offered little comfort. Each inhale grew harder. By 3:30, the decision was made. They had to descend. Jones, wrapped in a down jacket, boots half-laced, stumbled out into the night. The path down to Lobucha was frozen, uneven, treacherous in darkness. Every step dropped him lower, but not fast enough. The guide's radio picked up static. No rescue teams nearby, no helicopters flying in the pre-dawn cold. Only the sound of boots crunching on ice and the shallow gasps of a man fighting for air. HAPE does not care about age or fitness. Jones was 49, a father, a runner, a man who had trained for this trek. In the brochures, Gorak Shep is the last stop before glory. In reality, it is a place where bodies fail in silence and help is always hours away. The guides know the signs: confusion, pink-tinged spit, the slow collapse of will. The descent that should have saved him became a race against his own lungs. The clock was running out, and the mountain did not care. At 4:45 in the morning, Matthew Paul Jones collapsed on the trail below Gorak Shep. The guide checked his pulse, weak, thready, barely there. The radio crackled with static. No rescue team answered. In the pre-dawn dark, the wind cut through layers of down and fleece. Jones's breaths came in short, rattling bursts. High-altitude pulmonary edema had filled his lungs with fluid. Oxygen would not reach his blood. He was drowning on dry land. The guide tried again with the oxygen tank. The hiss of the mask sounded hopeful, but the flow was too weak at this altitude. There was no backup cylinder. The group pressed on, stumbling through ice and scree, hoping for the lights of Farish Clinic. But the descent was slow. Each step took them no closer to safety. Helicopter rescue was out of the question. Night winds over the Khumbu make flying impossible. At 5,000 meters, even the best pilots refuse to risk it. The rules are clear. No night flights, no exceptions. By the time the sun touched the peaks, it was too late. At 6:10, just past the prayer stones above Thukla, Jones stopped breathing. The guide called Farish again, voice breaking. There was nothing left to do. The clinic would later confirm the cause: high-altitude pulmonary edema. The official report listed the time of death, the place, the guide's name, and little else. There would be no headlines. No rescue helicopter ever arrived. The system had worked as designed. The rules were followed, but the rules do not favor the dying. At base camp and its approach, the promise of safety is a thin shield. When the lungs fail and the night is cold, help is always hours away. The mountain decides who lives and who is left behind. The guide walked back alone, boots crunching on the ice, carrying news for a family half a world away. Winter on the Khumbu is not for outsiders. The glacier hardens into slabs of blue ice. At night, the wind scours the camp, driving the temperature to minus 20 degrees Celsius. The tea houses are mostly empty. Only a handful of staff remain, men and women from nearby villages, paid by the season, waiting out the cold in stone rooms. The radio sits silent on the counter. There is no daily chatter from guides or porters. No rescue helicopters idle on the landing strip. In February, the sky is clear, but help is far away. The trail to Gorak Shep is deserted. No lines of trekkers, no mule trains, no clusters of expedition tents. A single tea house owner sweeps the floor, listening for the crunch of boots on snow. Supplies are low: fuel, rice, oxygen canisters. The high-altitude clinics are shuttered until spring. The only link to the outside is a battery-powered radio that picks up static more often than news. When a guest falls ill, there is no doctor to call. The nearest clinic is a 6-hour walk down the valley, and horses are scarce in the off-season. The cold seeps through stone walls. Water freezes in the pipes. Staff sleep in their clothes, huddled under blankets, rising before dawn to light yak dung fires. Outside, prayer flags hang limp, colors faded by wind and sun. The silence is broken only by the occasional cough or the faint clatter of dishes. In the off-season, the Khumbu is a place of waiting. Every decision is measured against the risk of isolation. There are no safety nets. The guides have gone home. The rescue teams are in Kathmandu. The air is thin, and the margin for error is gone. For the few who remain, staff, late-season trekkers, or those who push on despite warnings, each day is a gamble. When the body fails, there is no quick way out. The mountain does not care about schedules or intentions. It only cares that you are alone. When Shuo Dong arrived at Gorak Shep in February 2024, the tea house was nearly empty. The cold pressed in through stone walls. Staff kept to themselves, waiting for spring. Dong was 26, a traveler from China, alone at the last outpost before Everest Base Camp. He had followed the standard itinerary, Lukla to Namche, then up the valley. But the season was wrong. The clinics were closed. The guides had gone home. There was no backup oxygen, no rescue team on standby. Sometime in the night, Dong's breathing turned ragged. Altitude sickness moves quietly at first. Headache, nausea, a sense of unease. By the time the staff found him, he was unresponsive. The police constable on duty signed the log at 0230. The official cause, altitude illness. There was no doctor to confirm it. The nearest clinic in Dingbosch was 6 hours away by foot or horse, but there were no horses ready in the dead of winter. The staff radioed down the valley. Static answered them. A decision had to be made. They wrapped Dong in blankets and waited for dawn. At first light, a porter set out to find help, but the trail was ice, the wind sharp enough to cut skin. The descent began late. It took more than 6 hours to reach Dingbochi. By then, it was too late. Dong was pronounced dead on arrival. The time recorded matched the police log, 0230. There would be no helicopter, no medical team. The evacuation had been a formality, an act to satisfy paperwork, not to save a life. The report from Solukhumbu District Police was clear. Sudden onset, no prior symptoms reported. The constable's signature was the only mark of official attention. No one from the trekking agency or government came to investigate. Dong's journey ended not in triumph, but in silence. In a room where help was always hours away. Isolation had done its work. The mountain kept its distance. The world moved on. Lanama Sherpa was 55. His job was to keep the camp running, cooking, hauling, fixing tents, one of the invisible workers who hold Everest's base together. On March 30, 2025, the Solukhumbu District Police log records a call at 1930. Lanama had fallen ill at base camp. The symptoms matched what guides fear most: shortness of breath, confusion, a rattle in the chest. high-altitude pulmonary EDM. The camp's radio operator noted the time. There was no doctor on site, no oxygen to spare. The nearest clinic was hours away, down a frozen trail. The plan was evacuation by horse. The log lists the departure just after midnight. The route was standard, down the glacier, past Lobuche, aiming for the health post at Kumjung. In the dark, the temperature dropped below -15. The horse stumbled on the ice. Two Sherpa co-workers walked beside Lanima, wrapped in blankets, urging the animal forward. They reached Thukla at 7:15. By then, Lanima was no longer breathing. The police constable on duty signed the death certificate. Cause: altitude illness. No one from the government or trekking agency came to take a statement. The evacuation had been a ritual, something to fill the paperwork. The horse was led back to camp. The body remained at Thukla until the family could be notified. The official record ends there, one more line in a ledger kept far from the mountain. The story told by those who knew him is different. Co-workers remember Lanima as strong, careful, always telling new staff to rest often, drink water, never rush. But in the end, none of that mattered. The police log is precise. 1930, first symptoms. 7:15, death at Thukla. The mountain did not wait. The system did not save him. The facts are simple, the outcome final. The story, at least on paper, is over. The first news reports on Lanima Sherpa's death arrived with the morning. The rising Nepal and Republica named altitude sickness. Nepal, News, and Alan Arnett repeated the same. The timeline matched the police log. 1930, first symptoms. Midnight, horse evacuation. 7:15, death at Thukla. The story was clear, clinical, and final. But Ekantipur, Nepal's largest daily, published something different. Their headline said Lanima had drowned. The article quoted an unnamed source at base camp. A sudden plunge into a lake, not a slow suffocation. No mention of altitude, no mention of evacuation. Just a single stark phrase, fell into a meltwater pool. The contradiction was immediate. Base camp sits on a glacier. There are melt ponds in spring, shallow pools that form and vanish with the sun. But these are rarely more than a meter deep. The ice is hard, the surface uneven, but there is no open water. No lake deep enough to swallow a man. No record of anyone drowning here in decades of Himalayan expeditions. The police log did not mention a fall. No rescue attempt was recorded. No witness statements described a struggle in the water. The constable's signature marked only the time of death, the route taken, and the cause: altitude illness. Yet the drowning story spread. Other outlets repeated it, citing Ekantipur's unnamed source. The official record and the media narrative split in two. Maps of base camp show scattered blue pools, meltwater trapped in crevasses or hollows. In April, these are rimmed with ice, barely enough to wet a boot. Guides warn of soft spots, but they do not warn of drowning. The only deaths here have come from cold, altitude, or falling ice. The idea of a worker vanishing under the surface is an anomaly, a detail that does not fit. The result is a story with two endings. In one, Lanima Sherpa suffocates quietly, another victim of thin air and slow bureaucracy. In the other, he disappears beneath the ice, a casualty of the glacier itself. The truth is lost between the police log and the morning headlines. The mountain keeps its secrets, the system moves on. There is no official death registry for Everest Base Camp, no centralized ledger, no public archive. Each fatality exists only in fragments: police logs, clinic notes, scattered news reports. Some deaths are recorded in district ledgers, others slip through the cracks, marked only by a radio call or a hurried signature at a health post. There is no unified list, no way for families to trace the end of a journey except by piecing together what little survives. Autopsies are rare in the Khumbu. Most altitude deaths are signed off by a police constable or a clinic staffer, cause listed as illness or altitude. Bodies are sent down the valley, sometimes on horseback, sometimes by foot. The paperwork is thin. There is no requirement for further investigation. For foreign trekkers, embassies may request details, but for Sherpas and porters, The record is often a single line in a local logbook. When the media arrives, the facts scatter. One outlet names altitude sickness. Another prints a rumor of drowning. The official story hardens before the truth is known. Contradictions are rarely corrected. In the case of Lanima Sherpa, two versions remain in circulation, one clinical, one impossible. No one steps in to reconcile them. The system accepts the gap. There is no single place to look for the dead of base camp. The Himalayan database tracks summit fatalities, but not those who die in tents, in tea houses, or on the glacier's edge. Local authorities hold their own records, incomplete and often inaccessible. There is no public accounting, no annual tally. Each season, names vanish into the ice and the bureaucracy. Cultural barriers compound the silence. In Sherpa tradition, death on the mountain is a private matter, not to be broadcast or dissected. Families may choose not to speak. Rituals are held quietly, away from the eyes of tourists. The mountain keeps its secrets. The world reads headlines, then forgets. The result is an uneasy emptiness. No one can say how many have died at base camp or why so many stories remain unfinished. The mountain erases, and the system allows it. The silence is not accidental. It is the final, unresolved echo of every life lost in the shadow of Everest. Everest's base camp remains a lottery of fate, remote, exposed, and still marketed as safe. Altitude ignores ambition. Bureaucracy buries truth. Since 1990, 1 in 7 Everest deaths occurs below the summit, yet headlines rarely mention the tents, the descent, or the workers lost in silence. Illusion endures because the industry demands it. The mountain keeps its secrets, and every year, more arrive believing they are exceptions. What do you see when you look up at Everest now?